why we would be ashamed to talk about it. And that's this. And I do have a couple of these.
It's time to throw shame out of the window and start to challenge these misconceptions, these core beliefs, wrong beliefs that we have.
Men need to listen and watch the show as well, so they get the point.
Welcome to the She Word. Conversations that women rarely have, but really should. Oh my She-Worders. This is one show I know you're going to love. Recently, one of my guests at the table contacted me and said, you know, Trudy, we've had some great shows about sex, but we just keep beating around the bush. Excuse the pun. I would love to have a show that will empower every woman to really experience sexual pleasure and orgasm. Of course, I said, well, yes, let's do it. So here we are at a table with three women who are here to discuss a topic that I think every woman would love to be more informed about, but for most of us, we're just too afraid to ask. The show is aimed to guide every woman to greater sexual pleasure and dispel the myths and misunderstandings surrounding orgasm. We're here to empower every woman to have more and better orgasms. So, oh my word, ladies, we're finally here. We're actually doing this, and I'm really super excited. I'm going to start with you, Nicola, because this was actually, am I allowed to say your suggestion?
Yes.
Nicola, it's really good to have you at the table. You are a Gestalt psychotherapist and a relationship and sex educator. And this is not your first time at this show. You have been here many, many times. And quite frankly, every time you sit at this table, there's fireworks. So thank you so much, Nicola, for being here. Now, Chiara Friendel-Balzan, you are also a regular friend of the She Word, sharing your thoughts and wisdom on all things gynecological. You've also left me consistently jaw-dropped every time you're on the show with really just thinking about how little I know about us as women, the way that we're made up. And I suspect this is also going to be the case on this show. Of course, if Nicola is here and Chiara is here, there's always going to be Anna Catania as well, who is a highly respected and recommended qualified counsellor specialising in the area of sex and relationships, offering counselling and psychotherapy to individuals and couples who are having difficulties with sex, relationships and intimacy. And of course, you're a regular on the show as well.
Thank you.
I'm sitting in the presence of three amazing ladies. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome for being here. You're
Very excited to be doing this show.
Yes.
As you know.
There's lots of grins around the table. And I'm going to come to how easy it is to talk about this in a second. But before we get underway, and I have a feeling that once we get underway, I'm really not going to have an awful lot to say. But you are here to answer some very important questions. Before we get any further, I do want to reveal some statistics that are really pertinent to this show. So a study published in 2018 with over 50,000 adult participants revealed that only 65% of heterosexual women usually or always orgasm when sexually intimate. In comparison to bisexual women, 66%, lesbian women, 86%, bisexual men, 88%, and heterosexual men, 95%, indicating that there is a 30% difference in the orgasm gap between heterosexual men and heterosexual women. In 2005, Helen O'Connell, an Australian urologist, managed to develop a diagram of the full anatomy of the clitoris, which shows that around 90% of the organ lies beneath the surface. The whole structure is made up of erectile tissue, which swells up when a woman is aroused. We're 5 minutes in and I'm already reading this and thinking, okay, I know nothing. Moreover, the clitoris has around 8,000 nerve endings, making it 14 times more sensitive than the penis. Wow. 40 to 45% of women experience sexual dysfunction at some point, likely up to 63%, depending on culture, age, life circumstances, nationalities, or other factors. And this has many contributing factors, but only 20 to 30% of women experiencing this will seek medical help. And this is why we're doing this show, because it's difficult to talk about, it's difficult to seek help, and quite frankly, we don't know enough. I don't know enough, and I am really looking forward to being enlightened on this show. So before we go any further, I really just want to normalize this topic and how difficult it is to talk about, because it's not easy to talk about orgasm, sexual pleasure, and everything to do with our bodies. Why? Why is it not easy?
I think first and foremost, it's a very personal experience. Sex is a very personal experience. And when something can make us feel vulnerable, when you pair that with a society where it's still a taboo or when there's shame around the topic, it may become more difficult to open up even with a friend, let alone a professional, or thinking that this is something you could even talk about in a medical context, for example. So shame, that's a huge part of our work, I think, and why we do these shows, and that dispelling shame is a huge part of why it's important that we talk about these topics, because when there's shame, that creates a feeling that isn't comfortable when it comes to talk about these topics.
And it just doesn't make sense to me as to why we would be ashamed to talk about it. But we are. I mean, I'm a 50-year-old woman and I still go, oh, clitoris. I mean, it's true. We had this from the very beginning, the very first show, where I think, Anna, you said clitoris and I just went bright red. But it is something we need to normalize. I mean, and Chiara, we've talked about it so many times, because if something goes wrong, for instance, if you aren't enjoying yourself, if you are one of those potentially 63% of women, it's really important to talk about it.
Absolutely. 63, that's a lot.
That's a massive amount.
Yeah.
Yes. At some stage in our lives, we're going to experience something it doesn't feel right. And probably we'll go into this later on. But women who have given birth, for example, they will experience difficult sex. Women in menopause, because sex changes. So it's normal. It's not a taboo. There's no shame. And yet only 30-40% will speak to the doctors about it. And this is why we're having this talk,
Absolutely,
to make it easy to speak about this.
Anna, should we all be talking about this?
It's also from the professionals and from the research perspective. When you do a quick search on an academic database, research database around erectile dysfunction, you get thousands in the six-figure number of articles. When you do the same search around sexual pain in women, vaginismus, which is the inability to have penetrative sex, you get in the hundreds and maybe in the four-number digits. So also the focus of professionals historically has been to focus more on male sexual pleasure, on male sexual problems, on erectile dysfunction. So also the focus has been that way. So obviously then there will be shame, and individuals will find it difficult to speak up if there's a problem.
Okay, so we're sitting at this table, and I'm going to chin because we are sitting at this table talking about orgasm, talking about sexual pleasure, talking about everything that women want to have and want to experience, and we're actually going to do this. Yes. And we're going to talk about what an orgasm is. We're going to talk about how to get there. We're going to talk about how to enjoy it. We're going to talk about setting the scene. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of things to do with this, and we're just going to be very open. We're going to explain things. We're going to look at things. We're going to share things. But I want to start with this whole statistic. We've talked about this statistic so many times on the show about this orgasm gap. So I want to ask a question before we go into what is the orgasm and how we orgasm. Why the hell are heterosexual women getting the rough end of the stick when it comes to orgasm? Well, I mean, I could have used a better term there, but you know what I'm saying.
Most probably because we have all throughout the centuries been told that our pleasure is not important, that we are there to procreate, for male sexual pleasure. Thankfully, in the last 20, 30 years, a spotlight has been put on female sexual pleasure, on female sexual problems. But historically, women where female sexual pleasure was not important.
But hang on, only the last 20, 30 years.
Wow, that's
Hang on, 20, 30 years.
That's half my lifetime.
Puts us at half my lifetime. 20, 30 years puts us at 1995.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting because I remember growing up and, these teen magazines or coming of age magazines, and it's all about giving him pleasure. It's how to give the perfect blowjob. It's not the other way around. It's not how teaching a guy how to pleasure a woman. So when it comes to the heterosexual woman and the heterosexual male, so maybe that's why there's
That's
that
really
difference.
interesting. I remember those teen magazines as well, and flicking, and it's this is what you've got to do. This is what, and some of them were like really cutting edge, and this is how to be. This is how to pleasure your man. You are not wrong.
Yes.
It's in
You
line
are
with,
not wrong.
It's in line with sex education, right? It's the same period of time where we've been talking about sex education further than the reproductive cycle and actually how things work, and further than abstinence and all of that. It's very recent that these things have changed.
So are we
Or
now
improved.
Or improved? Yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, we're on a trajectory, hopefully in the right direction. Are we on a trajectory in the right direction where women
I
are
think
really
we are.
prioritizing their own orgasm?
I think we are, because there is more conversation about it in podcasts, in media, social media, and podcasts like these. So yes, we are, and women are coming forward to speak to their doctors, to speak to their therapists around. I'm not satisfied like this. I cannot be in this relationship anymore because I'm not sexually satisfied. So somehow there is a wave of empowerment around women's sexual needs. And that is why it's important that we continue talking about this.
People are coming forward younger as well, even for therapy. I think back some time ago, maybe women would come forward more when there's, for example, with vaginismus, they would come to deal with that when it comes to wanting to have children and therefore not having the ability to have penetrative sex, i.e. you're not going to have children. Whereas nowadays, I've seen clients as young as 21 coming forward and realizing that there's this issue. Why? Because we're talking about it and they want to nip it in the bud early on, not wait into their 30s, 40s to deal with this issue, which is very promising and positive that people are coming forward to deal with these things early.
That's absolutely brilliant. And we'll come to vaginismus. Every time we sit down at this table, I fluff that one. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, because I think that needs some explanation, just so that if there are any issues, we can get to it. Okay, so we know that, first of all, we know that we need to prioritize. We know that we need to step up and prioritize our own sexual pleasure. And that's why we're doing this here. I want to get into the science first before we get into really how we orgasm, what orgasm is. I want to find out about, I want to have this conversation because I want to ask, what is an orgasm? What is happening? What is the clitoris? I mean, I said at the very beginning that the clitoris is just a tiny part of a huge or comparatively huge organ.
Yes. So just to get the words correct, we've got the vulva, that's the outside part. Okay, so that's the skin, and that comprises of the labia, so the lips, and there's two sets. So we've got the labia minora and the labia majora. Okay, majora means bigger, and minora means the smaller lips. And these come in all different shapes and sizes. Okay, and the clitoris is this erectile tissue, so like muscular. Okay, that when there is arousal, when someone is engaging in something pleasurable, there is more blood flow to this area, and the labia then become more turgid as well.
They
Okay.
become more what?
Turgid, like firmer rather than
Oh,
floppy.
okay.
Not unlike like a penis.
Yes.
Okay, so the penis also has this erectile tissue. So it's this muscle that with more blood flow. So blood flow goes to the end and stays there during this arousal time.
Okay.
So that's the vulva. Okay, the clitoris is behind these labia, and obviously the vagina is the inner part, so the inner tube.
Okay. So if I was looking at a female anatomy downstairs, down there, we're looking at the lips, which the outer lips, which is what you can see from the outside.
Correct.
Which is the
Labia.
Okay.
Yeah, vulva compromises the whole skin, including the clitoris at the top as well.
Okay, so the
clitoris
whole
is
lot is called the
vulva.
The lips, the inside and the outside, we've got which are the
labia.
and the clitoris. And what does that look like?
It's in different shapes and sizes as well.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes it's hidden. It's got a hood over it as well. It's got a skin.
Almost like a foreskin.
Almost, yes.
Yes.
Almost like a foreskin. Yes, it's
Wow.
the equivalent. Yeah.
Okay.
And women have a bigger hood. Some women have a smaller clitoris. Some women, because of pathology and skin changes, will have the hood covering the clitoris. But it doesn't change the nerve endings. So this is what you do not see, the nerve endings. And the glands that also produce lubrication during arousal. That is important for intercourse, for penetration. Absolutely.
Okay. So how big is the part of the clitoris that we see, roughly?
Millimeters. I would say about
Very small.
half
Although it
a
can
centimeter.
vary.
Or it varies.
And when aroused, it can grow.
Yes.
So it's very similar to a penis in reality. It's erectile fluid, erectile tissue that when aroused becomes engorged, which is what Chiara was talking about, and it grows a little bit. So for some, it becomes more protruding. For others, it's not as visible. And that's why every woman would need different kinds of pressure, for example. So if someone doesn't have so much skin, it's more sensitive to touch because there isn't that, let's say, hood. For others, it might need more pressure because it's more covered by skin.
But I think in a previous conversation, I want to just to get this right. Am I right in thinking we had a previous conversation that the whole of the clitoris is a bit like a wishbone?
Yes.
And the bit
Yes.
that we're talking about that's actually on the outside of the
Yes.
body is like the top of the wishbone.
Yes.
So when you break the wishbone, it's the bit that keeps everything together.
Exactly.
Yes.
So what do these bits do?
So on the inside of where the labia are, so
Okay.
on the back side of that, internally, that's where the rest of the clitoris is.
Okay.
So it's like, what would you say? Kind of like
An arch.
like an arch, exactly.
But that's
Okay.
all in the pelvis.
It's inside.
So you have this very millimeter small part of the clitoris outside of the pelvis.
Which is where the nerve endings all come to a point, so to speak.
Yes. And the rest is in the pelvis.
Okay. So what is the purpose of the rest of it?
It becomes engorged like erectile tissue, like a penis.
So you're also feeling it in the rest of this wishbone
Exactly.
as well.
And that is what is part of the contraction. So an orgasm is essentially a contraction of muscles. And that part is part of the movement. And that's why we will talk about later different kinds of orgasms are all somewhat linked because the nerve endings are stretched towards the entire vulva, not just the clitoris. But that's where they live together.
Oh wow. Okay, so let's summarize this. We've just been through all the anatomy over here. Thank you, Chiara. We've got the clitoris, which is like a wishbone. At the top, we have the top of the clitoris, which is the part that is on the external.
Yes.
The two side parts, which are the side parts of the wishbone, are actually on the inside.
Yes.
But all of it, when you're aroused, becomes engorged, but the nerve endings are actually on the top part here. Is that right?
Most of them.
Most of them.
That's where they come mostly.
And recent research has indicated that we have around 10,000 nerve endings
So it's more now.
in the clitoris, which I believe, I'm not sure of this, but I believe it's twice the amount there is on the penile
Glands.
glands.
Run this one past me again. When you are actually orgasming, what is scientifically happening to your clitoris and everything around it? I love your face. Like, you're like, whoa, okay, this is a big question. Because we suddenly feel a rush of pleasure. What is that?
I think that's more psychological, but anatomically and not medically, but anatomically, there's a gush of fluid as well. And some women do squirt, not everyone, and that's not the aim. So, because I sometimes get women who talk to me about, they think they're not able to function sexually because they cannot squirt, and sometimes they see these things on porn movies, right? But there's a gush of lubrication fluid, and sometimes that's a minimal amount. It comes from the Bartholin's glands and from Skene's glands. So we've got these glands that are important, because otherwise it's really dry. And not everyone produces these fluids, and all orgasms are different and they're different wavelengths. But up here, there's a lot up here as well. I'm not a psychologist, but I was also thinking women come to me before they come to you
Yes.
with the problem,
Usually
because
they-
you're seeing women who want to improve. I see women who sometimes tend to tell me, oh, but it's a woman's duty. And then I try and approach the subject and see whether there is an issue that we need to deal with. And this is what I always say. Sex is very psychological for the woman. Very psychological. Because we need to be prepared emotionally as well. And I think this is where these ladies help with the situation. So
We're
with
going to come to this,
orgasm-
definitely, we're going to come to the psychology and the setting the scene and so on. And I'm just trying to get to the metaphorical bottom of what's actually happening. There's a rush of fluids that's happening in the body.
For some people, it feels like a sort of warm, hot flush that's emanating from the genital
Yes,
area.
absolutely.
And also to other areas of the body, sometimes the nipples. It's like a flush around the whole body. And most or many experience something similar to a contraction of muscles that usually lasts a few seconds, sometimes 20 seconds, sometimes more, sometimes less.
Okay. And this gives us pleasure because let's face it, if you've had an orgasm, you know you've had an orgasm.
Yes.
I remember when being kid. Oh, Anna's going to disagree with me.
Yes
but
and no.
I can remember having conversations when we were young, and you know, have you ever had an orgasm? This sort of thing. And the girls that sort of said, well, I don't know, I might have done. And I remember one of the girls turning around saying, nope, if you've had one, you know what it is. But maybe we don't.
Depends on the kind, maybe.
Okay. I'm
Depends
going
on
to Anna say, and then I'm going to find out about these kinds of orgasms. Okay.
Depending on the individual as well. I do get clients who tell me, I don't think I ever had an orgasm. And then when we talk through what they're experiencing, they are experiencing orgasms, but we always have this idea that orgasms are associated with fireworks, and we spoke about this in our last podcast, and extreme pleasure. And sometimes orgasms are a lovely feeling, a deep connection, and so people experience orgasms differently. And although the body does react the way we are describing anatomically and physiologically, individuals experience orgasm differently. So it's quite an individual experience. It is also has a lot to do with intimacy and how much you're ready to let go, how much you're trusting your partner, how it's built up. So
Okay. So we definitely, this is a question after the next question. We're definitely going to talk about how much of it is emotional, physical, and so on. But before we get there,
I just feel alive. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I got that lifestyle, I'm fierce as hell. That bread top model, that high speed fast throttle. Living it up, you know I love you. It said I just feel alive. feel alive.
I'm still getting to the bottom of the orgasm. And the big question is, I think for a lot of us, is the clitoris, you mentioned different kinds of orgasm. Is the clitoris the only way to orgasm? Because everybody mentions the G-spot, and I don't think anybody really knows what the G-spot is. Is it the only way to orgasm is from clitoral stimulation? Because that's not penetrative.
It's not, but statistically speaking, somewhere between 80 to 90% of women only achieve orgasm through the clitoris.
Okay.
And those 10 to 20% that do orgasm through vaginally, through penetration, and to different kinds, which we will explain, that number can grow when there is clitoral stimulation as well. So the clitoris is a very important part of sexual pleasure for women. And usually that is the most pleasurable way, or the easiest way, or the most common way, let's say, for women to experience an orgasm with clitoral stimulation. But there are different kinds. There's vaginal. We can talk about the existence of the G-spot. There's something called an A-spot. There's anal.
I'm asking you,
orgasms.
let's talk about these. This is what I'm asking you. What kind of orgasms? Because you mentioned vaginal. What does that mean?
So a vaginal orgasm usually happens through penetration, now be that with a penis or toys or fingers, stimulation of the vaginal cavity internally. And there's different kinds. So you mentioned the G-spot. Now scientifically, there's a lot of
debate
that's the
around
word.
the existence of the G-spot. Is it a
Yes.
spot? Is it an area of nerve endings? Maybe Dr. Chiara can...
Yes,
It's more, I would say it's more of an area than a spot.
an area.
And it's not a specific place in everyone. It can...
Somewhere in the middle between the entrance of the vaginal cavity and the cervix, but
Yes.
I would agree that we're all different.
Yes.
And so it's not always going to be a specific spot. But the argument is, or the theory is, that this area, when stimulated, can result in an orgasm. And that there's some scientists that argue that this is also where a lot of nerve endings that come from the clitoral area also have like an easier access to. So it's another way to stimulate the same nerve endings that we are talking about.
Okay.
Yes,
So can I summarize that?
of course.
We do have a G-spot. We don't necessarily know where it is. It's not a spot. It's an area of nerve endings, and it may or may not stimulate clitoral. It may or may not stimulate orgasm.
Yes.
Sounds to me like someone needs to be doing a butt ton more of research
yes.
than
Agreed.
than is being done at the moment. Because if there is a G-spot, I mean, it's always been, nothing's changed in 25, 35 years. People were talking about the G-spot when I was a teenager, and still we're sort of having this conversation saying there is some information, but research is not unified in what it is and how it is, and yet it is. It could be an important part of women's sexual pleasure.
Yes.
And it could be cause this debate because if I'm thinking right now, if 80 to 90% of women only orgasm clitorally, if research have asked these people, potentially they say, no, of course, I've never had an internal orgasm. So I'm wondering whether this is the reason why there's such a debate. And also the reality is that every anatomy of every person is different. So for different people, the case might be that you don't have this particular spot. We don't know. But yes, but it is possible.
Can we not know? I mean, I'm sitting here dumbfounded. The more and more we talk about this, the more and more I'm dumbfounded by how much we don't know. And I'm glad that we're sitting down and having a conversation about what we do know. But it does seem to me like there's still a lot out there that we don't know.
To clarify, women will experience, or the majority of women will experience pleasure from stimulating this area of the vaginal cavity. So the question mark of whether it exists or not, or whether it can result in an orgasm, that's what's still a question mark.
Okay.
But sexual pleasure is still present in this area.
But we're not entirely sure where the area is. Or it
Towards
differs
the
for everyone.
outside.
Okay, towards the
So-
outside.
So if you imagine the vagina as a canal, which is about 10 centimeters long,
Okay.
it's towards the outside. So in the first 1 or 2 centimeters in, okay? We have the highest nerve endings towards the outside. So as the clitoris, all these areas are towards the outside. So this is why the stimulation, we don't need internal stimulation. External stimulation, we've talked about penetration and intercourse. But yes, it's towards the outside. We'll focus on
all right.
that.
So we got to focus on the outside.
Yes.
Except that you also mentioned the A spot.
Yes, so the A spot is another area which is further towards the back of the vaginal canal, somewhere between the cervix and the bladder area, which also, when stimulated, there's a lot of pleasure. So again, any penetration can be pleasureful, but might not necessarily result in an orgasm. So that's why women still enjoy to have penetration, or some women enjoy penetration. The question mark is whether everybody can achieve orgasm because of this gap. But A spot is further in. So the G spot is further towards the outside of the vaginal cavity, and the A spot is further in. So it's like a deeper orgasm.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think it's important to note that many women need to be highly aroused before penetration to achieve orgasm, because arousal, if the clitoris is stimulated, the woman gets aroused, there's lubrication, and then penetration can at times, and a number of women enjoy the penetrative sex because also of the fullness, the sense of fullness during penetrative sex inside a woman. So for heterosexual and bisexual women, that's pleasurable as well. But usually there needs to be a build-up to that. There needs to be a build-up around foreplay. There needs to be a build-up around clitoral stimulation. There needs to be a build-up around having enough lubrication for then penetrative sex to be successful, if we need to use that word, and result in orgasm.
Okay, so I'm going to dig into this because my bigger question is, how do we achieve orgasm? How do we, and this is a question for every single woman, how do we achieve orgasm? And you've just said there needs to be a build-up. There needs to be something that goes before penetrative sex, if that's where you're going, or whatever you're going for.
Can I just clarify something small? Because you mentioned heterosexual and bisexual women. When I talk about penetration, I'm also talking about different kinds of penetration. So even lesbian women can, want this sense of fullness, maybe through toys or other ways. Just so we're clear on what penetration, not necessarily penetration by penis, right? Also toys, fingers, etc.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to the bigger question of how we achieve orgasm, because we've just mentioned that there's a lot of context that needs to build before we can get to orgasm, which I assume is because we've also talked about the swelling of the clitoris, we've talked about the fluid, we've talked about the blood to the nerve endings. So how much of that is physical? How much is emotional, mental, relational? How do we get to an orgasm, guys? Either on your own or with someone else.
Mela. I'm loading the guns.
Okay, here we go, ladies.
First of all, it's really interesting. When I was doing my training, especially initially in sexual medicine, I got asked a question, which is the biggest sex organ? And actually, the biggest sex organ is the skin, all of our skin. Because the skin is very sensual, going to engage in sex and intimacy through our senses is very, very important. So when we're talking about pleasure, and when we're talking about setting the scene, and when we're talking about the build-up, we need to think about not just concentrating on the breasts, on the genital area, on the buttocks, which are traditionally associated with sex and intercourse, but we also need to think about other areas of the body that can be pleasurable, around kissing, around touching certain erogenous zones. So, and when we have sexual problems, and my colleagues can concur with this, we usually shift the focus actually from genitals and to the rest of the body, to touch, to mindful touch, to sensual touch. So I think we need to focus on orgasm around the genital area, but if we are setting the scene, if we are talking about build-up towards this orgasm, if it's going to be a meaningful orgasm, it cannot be
In isolation.
in isolation.
Okay, so we've got this, and look, we're going to throw all the things onto the table right here in the middle that are going to contribute
Yes.
to orgasm. So we've got the touching of the skin, not just around the genital area or the bum.
So, and
or anything.
sensual touch, and
Sensual
using
touch. But why? What is that stimulating apart from?
it's stimulating the brain. It's stimulating emotions. It's stimulating pleasure. So it engages with another important sexual organ, which is the brain.
Exactly.
you
That's
know?
where I'm coming from.
So, but we access our brain and our emotions through our senses because we are physical beings.
And that's why engaging all the senses is also important. So here we're thinking about also how we're maximizing our pleasure, how we're increasing our pleasure. So continuing on what Anna's saying, we can think about things like, touch is very important. We enjoy touch, even a gentle touch, even that feels nice. So can you imagine in the context of that intimacy? But also smell, taste, these are all things that are part of our senses that can enhance an experience. That's why we like to buy perfume and smell nice when we're going on a date or whatever for ourselves, right? So all of these things help us to set the scene, to set our mood, to set our brain, to relax and enjoy the experience more so than just focusing straight on the anatomy. And that's the difference between maybe keeping in mind the emotional and the mental aspect and just the physical aspect, because as Chiara said rightly so in the very, very beginning, sex is both a physical and a psychological experience.
Okay, so we're going to come to the contributing factors of how to set the scene in a few minutes, but just to keep it kind of real basic right now, we're talking about touching because that's the physical. We're talking about the senses, stimulating the senses with sound, with smells,
visuals.
with visual.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, talk to me a second. Let's divert for a second into the visual because you're looking at me like that because I want to be really clear about this, and this is no means a disparaging comment towards men, but women's bodies are quite nice to look at and men's are not necessarily. So not necessarily. Oh, okay.
It depends. That's why there's thirst traps. No one TikTok and social media.
Why there's
Men, they just go abs and
yes. No, I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yeah.
I'm saying
So it
that-
depends
that
on the
very
man and the woman that you're looking at.
No. I'm not saying that. There are lots of beautiful, gorgeous, wonderful things about men. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when we get down to something like a dick pic or something like that, you see,
That's different. But we're talking,
everyone at the table just went, oh no.
no, but we're talking then again back to genitals.
Yes, exactly.
So we're trying to shift the focus from genitals to other.
There you go.
I love to. I enjoy seeing beautiful men with. Although I'm a married woman,
I love the fact that,
with
Anna had to
I'm
just
touching my ring.
holding her wedding
It's
ring.
still there. I love my husband very much, but come on, when I'm at the gym and there's a 26-year-old near me full of abs, it's nice to look at, no?
I feel like we have a new revelation of Anna. I love that you just said that. No, I'm not going to disagree with you. But I think this is crucial, though. This is crucial because it's defining what we as women find visually stimulating.
Yes.
And what I'm saying is there's a misnomer that women receive a picture or see a penis and suddenly we're switched on.
No.
That is not the case.
That is a big misnomer, I agree.
Exactly. And I want to dispel that.
yes.
Unless, Chiara, you've got one of those faces that just might be disagreeing
No,
with us.
absolutely. But I'm thinking men need to listen and watch the show as well, so they get the point.
Yes,
exactly.
absolutely. But men are more, I believe, more physically stimulated immediately by women's genitalia,
Breasts.
breasts,
Yes.
vagina, all these sorts of things than women are. Because when we talked about what we like and have pleasure, whether you're heterosexual or gay or lesbian or whatever it is, everything is different. Everything is different. And so what we're saying here is set the scene visually, smell, touch, sound, but set the scene visually is not us just looking at men's parts or anything.
I think that
like
also has to do with whether that was something that you asked for or you just received it.
Unconsensually. Yes, I think that has to do
and
as
a
well.
whole nother show.
Because there are women that will enjoy I think I've spoken about this before on, I don't remember which show, but the mental build-up can also come from the anticipation of texting throughout the day, flirting.
It was in the last show and I've taken that on board. Thank you.
So,
It's consensual.
without going into the legalities and ethics of sending pictures, but what I'm trying to say is different people will get aroused in different ways. This, something we sometimes talk about is the erotic blueprints, where there's
Is a what?
they're called they're called the erotic blueprints.
Okay.
This is I think an American professional that has developed this theory that there are 5 blueprints: energetic, sexual, sensual, kinky, and shapeshifter. And basically, different people get aroused in different ways, and we have a combination of these 5 with usually a preference. And somebody that's a shapeshifter tends to, with different people, have different needs. And I mention them because sensual, for example, is focused a lot on the senses. This is somebody that gets aroused by these things, by having the music, by having the right setting, by having the senses engaged. Other people, the sexual, let's say, category, are people that are stimulated by the more traditional things that we would see in pornography. So the nudity, the body itself, the genitalia. Energetic is more about the energy, about how I'm feeling mentally, mindfulness, how we're engaging in intimacy. Some people are engaged more by kink, by a more kinky approach towards sex, and some have a mix. So it's not really based on gender, I would say, but on preference. But because of pornography, people are more familiar to that image of straight-on nudity, of very sexy contexts, of the delivery man and all of these things.
And not
I think
just-
that's where this may come from.
And not just
come from.
pornography. I mean, let's be honest, that's also what we see in films and we see
Exactly.
in media and so on. But what
Exactly.
you're describing there, as you're describing it, made me think that there's parallels between that and love languages.
Yes, exactly.
They're sex languages.
Exactly.
And they're called the erotic
Blueprints.
blueprint. So we're talking about these different sex languages, and that we at the table, probably, or in the same way that we'd be very happy to sit here and say, well, my love language is this. And this is a conversation that women have around a table.
Yes.
My love language is time. My love language is gifts, or so on. In the same context, to normalize this, we have something very similar that's a sex language.
Yes.
And we are stimulated by different things, which explains why we get turned on by different people.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's why, just like when we're working with couples with love languages, where we understand that I may receive love by acts of service and you may receive love by quality time, and we have to adapt to each other, it's the same with the erotic blueprints, because your way of getting aroused and my way of getting aroused may be different, which is why sometimes in couples we need to negotiate and understand what the other needs. Because what I need may be completely different from what you need. And that's the negotiation part that we do.
So here's my question. If we all have different sex languages and we are anatomically different, and our parts are our vulva, labia, clitoris, probably different sizes, different shapes, and we have then different tastes and so on. We have so many different variables.
Yes.
How on earth do we know what we like? Because isn't that, if we knew what we liked and we could communicate that to our partners, surely we'd get to orgasm much faster.
To have a basis on how the body works and in sexual arousal.
That's what I want. So what is this?
But now the latest model we work with in our therapeutic settings is what we call the dual control model, which is a set of exciters excitatory factors and a set of inhibitory factors that are very individual. So there is at this basis this biological process going on, but then the excitatory factors and the inhibitory factors, if you put them, I give the example of a radio knob, a radio switch that you increase the volume and reduce the volume. The excitatory factors, if they are increased, would help a person get excited, interact in a sexual encounter or in solo sex and orgasm. If there are inhibitory factors, that will not happen.
Okay.
It's a bit like a car.
Okay.
So if you're pressing the gas and the brake at the same time, it's not functioning well. And there are things that can push the car forward, but there are things that can stop. And this could be function problems, this could be stress, this could be a lot of other things.
This could be a physical problem like menopause or a disability, or so there are many factors that can either inhibit or
But
excite.
the basis is that the body needs to get prepared for sex. That is the arousal part. To do that, there is the desire. So mentally, we need to be prepared. Physically, we are prepared. And unless those two factors are in play, the body is not relaxed or aroused enough to be able to have pleasurable sex or orgasm, or it's difficult.
I think you've just really said something there between the pair of you, but really, really profound. And I'm going to repeat it back to make sure I get this right. You have to be mindfully, you need to be mentally aroused. You have to have desire. You have to have desire?
We'll talk about that.
Okay, all right. Okay. Let's take it as a given. You have to have desire and you have to have stimulation.
Yes.
And then you have your body. Go through that one again. So I want to be very clear so that everyone
can define a bit responsive desire, because sometimes desire isn't spontaneous. But if we're talking about it as a basis, the mind and the body are getting ready. The body is getting lubricated, is getting aroused. We spoke about engorgement. We spoke about the nerve endings. And that is what's helping us achieve pleasure and or orgasm.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to achieve orgasm if mentally and physically you're not ready for it.
Okay.
Right? And mentally especially, there's a lot of blocks, and also physically.
And the blocks can be relational, can be past trauma, can be cultural, can be shame, can be physical, or
So let's
can be medication.
Medication, yes.
okay. So let's talk about in the instance. I'm still trying to get to the real bottom of all of this. Let's talk about this in a balanced, ideal situation.
Mm-hmm.
A woman is mentally aroused. She experiences desire. She's feeling relaxed. She's in a setting that is appropriate. And she's with someone that she has trust, because I should imagine trust is a great deal to do with this as well.
Or likes, maybe.
Or likes, or she fancies, or she's attracted to. And so because of that, because she's mentally aroused, if I'm right in thinking, then she becomes physically aroused, which then heightens certain essential parts of the body, not necessarily just the clitoris, but certainly the clitoris is a large part of the play there. And then the clitoris or another part of the body, the mysterious G-spot or whatever it is then engaged in a way that creates a fluid engorgement as well as a blood engorgement, as well as a psychological, mental interaction, and that is orgasm. Is that right?
Yes.
But
but I will add something which we forgot to mention in the physiological. When we do have an orgasm, there is a release of a chemical called oxytocin, which has to do also with the connection. It's called a good feel. A good feel.
Oxytocin, we often talk about oxytocin. Okay.
So there's also that happens after, and why we feel good after and during, etc.
So to add to that, there's also a chemical reaction. Okay. If we add the chemicals in, are we kind of there?
Yes, but we have Anna's butt.
Oh no.
Unintended.
Anna's bringing her butt into it. What does your butt have to say about this?
Because in a number of circumstances, the desire is not there.
Yes.
And then we talk about responsive desire and responsive arousal
Yes, we've talked about this before. We've talked about spontaneous
and responsive.
and responsive.
Yes.
And the responsive comes with a choice. So I am with someone I trust. I want to engage in sexual intimacy. I decide to set the scene and decide to have sexual intimacy. And my body starts responding. And then the desire to continue in that process of sexual intimacy happens. So the process of desire, arousal, orgasm, resolution is not linear,
Exactly.
especially in women.
Okay.
It has more layers than that.
And I'm going to come back to something that we said, I think it was in the last show when we sat around the table together, and that was that that there is, you had said that there is an understanding now that spontaneous sex, and I've had this conversation with so many friends, really doesn't exist. Because even, and it's one of the reasons that we, as we get older and we're longer in a relationship, or if we're in menopause or so on, and you talked about this responsive arousal, you know, you start to feel a bit bad about yourself. You start to feel a bit crap because, you know, I'm not as wild as I used to be. But I remember you saying, Anna, something that was really profound, that even in the beginning of a relationship where you think you're having spontaneous sex, where you're just seeing someone, you're just, no, you've shaved your legs, you've had a shower, you've done your hair, you've gone out for dinner, you've made sure that you're wearing perfume. Everything has gone into that. That's not spontaneous, that's a setup. And I think it's really important to remember that even if you're going out for a night out and you might meet a one-night stand, you are already prompted. You're already preparing yourself for an encounter. And that's part of the psychological, the mental that goes into that. All of that preparation. When you told me that, when we sat here and we talked about that, for me, it was such a relief, because we as women put so much pressure on ourselves. You know, it's got to be spontaneous. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. In actual fact, you know, quite frankly, bollocks.
Yeah.
Or probably the not. But because... wrong gender. But because we have, in all of this, and now what I'm understanding from this conversation, so much of that preparation is mental, emotional, sensory, that it really isn't just a spontaneous interaction. There's a lot that goes into setting the scene.
Now, it can exist, so spontaneous sex can exist, but I think from this conversation, it's about removing this pressure and expectation that that's how it's going to be always, and that if we're not like that, something's wrong with us. It's not the case at all.
And there is a huge difference between having sex in the beginning of the relationship, in the first 6 months to a year and a half, and after you've been with the same person if you're in a long-term relationship for 10 years. Because there is also what we call the Coolidge effect, which is the
effect?
Coolidge effect,
Okay.
which is the newness of being in a new relationship, the newness of discovering someone new, their tastes, their likes, their dislikes, their bodies, if we're talking about sex. So there is a certain newness. A colleague of mine who's a lecturer, this is the way she explains it, and I think it's really effective. She tells the students, I like chicken wrap, but if I have chicken wrap Monday to Sunday, breakfast, lunch and dinner, I am sure that after 2-3 months, I'll be fed up of it. So we cannot really compare. We get a number of clients saying, I want to have sex the way we had sex the first 6 months. And they're 5 years into the relationship with 2 kids and a dog, and it's not the same.
So you might have to add jalapeno peppers to your chicken wrap to be interesting.
Yes. And to
You like what I
talk
did
and
there?
see what we want to try. There are things to do. But it's always about having the space to talk about it and learn how we can, first of all, accept that this is a reality and that it's okay, that we're not going to be the same as we were 5 years ago, because we're not, at the end of the day, in any context of our life, the same as we were 5 years ago. But also that it's okay to fall in love in different ways and to fall in love with sex in different ways. And our bodies, our minds, our mentalities change over time. And that sex is part of that.
Thank you. I want to ask one more question about the physiological before we move on to setting the scene and everything else that we're going to talk about in this show. And that is, If we're talking about orgasm, we talked about the mental preparation, whether it's going out for a night out, everything that goes before a sexual encounter, whether it's being at home with your partner, setting the scene if you want to with music, whether it's kink, with whatever it is.
Yes.
Emotionally, mentally preparing yourself. And then we have the physical, which is where everything starts moving into interesting areas, and we have the chemical as well. I want to specifically talk about clitoris, but this doesn't only apply to clitoris because of what you were saying about the mysterious G-spot as well. Does it come down to pressure? Are we going to orgasm when the clitoris receives touch? Is it going to be engagement with the G-spot by touch? Is that what's happening? Because I want to be really basic for anyone that's not experiencing an orgasm in their relationship, and they're going through all of this, but they're still not getting there. What is the thing that's going to really push you into orgasm, even though we know that orgasm is different for every woman?
I mean, stimulation comes in different ways. Usually, when it comes to the clitoris, it is touch. Now, whether some people enjoy with fingers, some people enjoy with the tongue, some people enjoy with toys, but it is stimulation that could be a form of pressure. It could be a movement. It could be different. What's the word? Speed.
Vibration.
Yeah. So it's going to be different for every single person. Some need more pressure, some need less pressure, some need faster, some need slower. That's where the communication comes in. But it's a build-up that usually requires touch, direct touch. Or if not direct, because it could be that the clitoris is too sensitive, especially when there isn't a lot of skin, it could be touch over the clitoral hood, for example.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And internally, it's the same way. So some people will enjoy stimulation that's with more pressure, with more speed. Other people prefer slower penetration or movement. So it's going to be different for different people, but usually it involves stimulation by touch in some way.
The reason I'm asking this is because we've sat at this table before, the four of us, and we've talked about the importance of, for want of a better word, solo sex before you engage with a partner. Because I'm assuming it's really important for us to know what kind of pressure, what kind of touch,
Yes.
what kind of stimulation before you involve anybody else. Am I right in that?
Yes.
I'll go a step before that. We need to know how our vulva look like.
Yes.
So get out your compact mirrors and check.
Why do we need to know what it looks like?
Because we need to know where we're touching. We need to know which part feels pleasurable or not if we're going to guide someone else.
Exactly.
It's really important because we all look very different, and we need to embrace how we look because we all look very different. So, because unfortunately, and most probably Chiara gets this the most, many women will think that their inner labia need to look a certain way, and if their inner labia...
Why?
Because-
Why they think this? I have no idea.
I think because of the pressure around
What they
pornography.
say. Yeah, probably what they say, probably. But yes, and I've had girls as young as 13 brought in by their mothers requesting a labiaplasty, so a reduction of the labia. And there's nothing wrong with having different size labia. And we're not even symmetrical even.
Yes. And it can change over time.
And it can change over time.
Should we be worried about this? Is this something that we should consider doing? Why?
No, I think unless there's pathology, unless there's something, if there's a lump or if there's something, scar tissue, for example, something that's painful, then we can do something about it surgically. Actually, once I had a conversation with a male friend of mine, and he told me that he prefers it when the female sex partner has bigger labia because it grips the penis more.
Nice.
But there's nothing wrong with having different size labia, and we wouldn't. Well, at least the way I was trained as well, because coming from the UK training, we don't do labiaplasty just for aesthetics.
Okay.
Just for aesthetics, we don't do that. But for medical reasons, for pain, for pathology, then we can look into that.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
as women, we have enough things to be self-conscious about, and our labia should not be one of them.
Yes,
I mean,
agree.
I have to be really honest with you. It's not anything that's really crossed my mind, but I might be the older generation that doesn't.
No, it's a
didn't
very
consider-
valid question. There are people that have concerns about the size of their
Yes.
labia, but there was this wonderful exhibition originally called The Wall of Vagina, now
Yes.
corrected to Wall of Vulva. And everybody should look it up because it shows the reality that there are so many variations of what vulvas look like, and all of them are absolutely okay.
It's casts.
Yes,
Casts
cast
of
of actual
different.
real
Yes.
people.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And we should get our mirrors out.
And we should get our
Definitely.
I'm seeing a heightened purchase of
Compact
mirrors
mirrors.
now. Okay, so we've talked about this. We've talked about, thank you so much for explaining about the pressure, explaining about how that is different, how we have the different sex languages, so we need to know ourselves. I mean, it really is quite a complicated components that come together
Yes,
Yes.
to achieve orgasm, right? There's a lot at play here.
yes.
But ultimately, this is what we want to do. So I want to talk a little bit about setting the scene, because for women and probably for men as well, setting the scene, getting ourselves emotionally, mentally in the right place, whether that is your night out, whether that is, music that's touching the skin and the senses and so on, engaging the senses. I want to start by setting the scene that is typical for women. Okay, so we're going to talk about situation in a second, but how do we, as women, get ourselves to be feeling a little bit more sexy? Because isn't confidence a lot to do with this as well? Because we all know when we feel good, we feel good. Is that something that's played
Yes,
here?
it is what we wear. It's how we feel about our bodies. It's about self-confidence. And self-confidence is very sexy. So the way you present yourself, the way you hold yourself. So it starts from inside, and then obviously because for some of us wearing lingerie can really help. How do you say? Enhance our assets. So if that helps us, if that is something that will help us get in the mood, and yes, why not?
Okay. As if by magic, I happen to have some underwear. So I want to talk about
As if
this
by magic.
because this is something that comes up quite often. It's something that is referred to quite a lot. And I was talking to, I have a lot of underwear, and I want to talk about, look, I mean, for instance, we have this beautiful red. This is what we think of. When we think of sexy, when we think of Valentine's, when we think of these occasions, we think of either red or we might think of black. And I also want to bring some other elements into this. You guys are like thinking to yourself, what is she coming up with? Because I want to put this on the table because we focus a lot on lingerie, whether it is through films, whether it's through pornography, whether it's just through our experiences. We figure a lot on, and then everything is different. We have, look at this.
Yes.
So we have some really nice underwear here. And we also have harnesses. So this is a full body harness. You're smiling.
Chiara's very, very curious about the harness.
I'd get
These are
tangled up
beautiful.
in this.
They're very nice.
Well,
And it's also about what you're comfortable in, what you're okay with wearing. So I would, for example, not be very comfortable in this, but maybe this color would match more my skin. So it's also wow.
There's a thing.
You're like Mary Poppins,
You're like,
underwear.
yes, is there more?
there is more. Okay.
Maybe I want to hide my belly.
Yes.
And
A little bit
and then
for everyone.
That's
I
lovely.
love. This I absolutely love, and I'm going to give her a bit of a plug because this is from Slinky and Co in Nashar. And the reason that I'm doing that is because when I went to, I have a bigger bust, and when I have bought underwear, which is so much about when you get there to the point where you're in the bedroom or you're in the kitchen or wherever it is that you're getting intimate. That is the last layer, isn't it? That's the last layer that you're going to come to before you're likely to engage in arousal and coming to orgasm. And so she told me something really important. And I want to ask you ladies about this, that this all has to be comfortable. Is exactly what you said. It has to fit and it has to make you feel confident. And something that Samara said, she also said, you should feel that confidence every day.
Yes.
Talk to me about that, because we've just mentioned this, because this has to be something to do with getting ourselves into the right place physically and mentally.
Yes. That's a great topic to bring up, because we need to feel, we're talking about confidence, and it's about feeling that empowerment and confidence every day, not only when we're going to engage in sex. So maybe lingerie isn't everyone's comfort to wear every single day, but whatever it is that makes you feel good, be it a bra, be it underwear, be it whatever you're comfortable to wear as a woman, you should be feeling that every day. So it's okay to wear lingerie every day. Not necessarily only when you're going to have a date or you're going to have sex with your partner. Why not? So this mentality, you're doing this also for you. You can wear this beautiful bra for yourself, not for somebody else. But in the context of sex, yes, why not wear the thing that makes you feel the best in that environment where you're going to be, undressing?
Why does that work? Why are we likely to... Well, okay, let me backtrack a bit. Are we more likely to get aroused and to get into a point where we're feeling sexy if we're wearing something that is sexy?
I think it's again going back to the anticipation, because in preparation for sex, you are preparing what you're going to wear, and that's already part of the mental anticipation, right?
Okay.
So this is what you said earlier. If you're shaving your legs and you're waxing and you're getting perfume, it's all part of the mental anticipation.
Okay.
So that could be why we associate lingerie or whatever it is that you're wearing with, it's like a little fun thing that you're doing to prepare. And it's also making you feel good, right?
Okay.
It's also wearing something that you like and that you like on yourself, and to first wear it for you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're wearing something that's really itchy, that's maybe too small, that you're not comfortable in, it's not going to make you feel comfortable in your own skin, not going to make you feel good enough to present yourself to be intimate. So it's about comfort. It's about something you look in the mirror and say, I look good in this. I mean, Chiara mentioned something that puts, if you're conscious of your tummy, puts your tummy in, and why not? So it's also about comfort, and it's also about comfort in your own skin and you liking it before, and you embrace it before you present it to your partner.
And also owning yourself, no matter how you look like, whatever size you are, whatever shape you are. We all have the right to feel sexy and to wear lingerie or whatever it is we want to wear.
Okay. Well, I happen to, I mean, I don't know about you, I happen to like some of these. I do like, I love Anna's face when I brought out the blue and the purple.
Beautiful
Like,
colour.
what?
That is a beautiful color.
Yeah.
But again, it's very subjective, isn't it?
Yes.
We have harnesses here. This harnesses, where are we going with this?
I mean, I think if you're talking about kink, for example, yes, that tends to come, maybe we're associating these things more with the kinky kind of sex. But I think even in fashion nowadays, people wear harnesses as part of day-to-day clothing, as part of style. But yes, I mean, different people may enjoy adding things that they would not normally wear, and that makes them feel even more excited to have sex, for example, or it builds up that anticipation a bit more.
And that comes back to the sex languages.
Yes.
Yes.
Gotcha. Now I'm beginning to understand.
Some people like to have a kinky element, some people don't, but yes.
Okay, let's continue with the setting the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because we've talked about how much this is a playing into our arousal, and I remember And
When she looks at me that way, I get worried.
What is she going to bring up?
I remember we had a conversation about hotels and we had a conversation about the Gozo ferry.
Yes.
Because if you're listening to this and you're not in Malta, there's one of the small islands that is off the coast of the main island of Malta is Gozo, and it's been known for a very long time as a holiday honeymoon destination. And I myself, when I go there, I'm feeling relaxed and I'm feeling much more in the mood to be intimate than I am necessarily when I'm at home. And we covered this off in the last show. But why is this? I mean, you know, we talk about Valentine's and we talk about going away for a Valentine's weekend or getting a weekend break or whatever it is. Why is that part of what we're talking about? Why is that part of setting the scene?
It's because you leave. You leave your work behind, you leave your kitchen behind, you leave your... it's the leaving mentality. It's getting into a holiday mentality. It's going to a hotel and finding a really nice clean room, towels that you did not wash, and it's about this letting go of and this relaxation mindset that you really need to be intimate. Let's face it, you're not going to have sex if you're anxiously thinking and ruminating about the problem you have at work or the laundry or the kids' exam. So the mindset of going on a holiday where exams were done, laundry, if there's a laundry it's left at home, the problem of work, now I'm holiday, I have my out of office email in place, and this idea of being in a place where I'm going to relax. And sex is a very relaxing activity, and this letting behind everything that is worrying us and making us feel anxious makes us in a position to be more relaxed and to then obviously be able to engage in
Because if I'm right in thinking, if we have a lot going on in our head at any one time, we're women, right? We think in barns. Men think in boxes. So men can much more easily switch off work. And it's one of their superpowers. They can switch off work and they can put that box over on the cupboard. They can close that, and now they're thinking about being intimate. Now they're thinking about, maybe they're thinking about something else, but maybe they're switching on to being intimate. I don't know about you, but as women, we think about a lot of things at the same time. We think in barns, which means if we haven't parked something and we're still thinking about it, it's still going through the process, we might be on our way, we might have the best underwear, we might be wearing this beautiful, lovely red bra here and the little outfit, and we're in the right location, but it's still going to come back and it still could potentially interrupt. We might be thinking about the washing that we haven't done, that we've left out in the line, that it's now raining, it's a beautiful, sexy place or whatever it is, but it's still going to interrupt our thought. Am I right in thinking if it interrupts our thought, it could interrupt our experience and
definitely.
therefore our sexual satisfaction?
Yes. There's a particular professional in the sexual field, very fitting, called Dr. Love, real surname, who talks about sexy body and sexy brain. And some people, sexy brain aspect, need to park a lot of things to be able to relax and enjoy sex. So for some other people, it's about the physical stimulation, and that helps them to get going. So yes, the mental aspect, we need a sexy brain to be able to engage in sex. And sometimes that's a bit more difficult because we have to park, as you rightly said, a lot of different things. Now, it doesn't mean we are not able to do that at home, but sometimes when we are going on holiday or going to Gozo or going to wherever it is, because we are having that automatic parking, because that stuff is left at home, it's easier to get into that mindset.
I remember when we talked about this, when Anna and I talked about this before, I was saying how I do love a hotel room, but we also all love the Gozo ferry. Because, I mean, seriously, we do all love the Gozo ferry because we do manage to park some of our worries right there at Chikawa, And then we head over on the ferry, and for some reason, there's this magic. I'm not the only one that thinks
Yes,
this, am
yes,
I?
yes,
yes, yes.
There is some magic about the Gozo
People are
ferry.
going to start looking at you funnily on the Gozo, Sherina.
What's
ferry
Trude
now?
doing?
Trude.
It's going to
What's-
be all the staff on Gaudas or Nicolaus just going, oh, here she goes again. But it's true. It is that transition.
Yes.
To switch off and to escape and to park your worries behind and park the concerns of the kids and the work schedule, and because we think like this, isn't it? I love this sexy brain thing.
Yes, and sometimes we do have to recommend it also for couples, for example, that are having difficulty to find that time for intimacy and connection. Sometimes you need to plan it, and part of planning it is, let's go to a nice hotel, let's have a bit of a break, let's go to Gozo. It doesn't need to be something super drastic, But yes, sometimes we need that space to be able to fully relax.
Mood lighting, music.
Yes.
I like the way Nicola just went, yes, all three. We'll just go with that. But this is also part of our because of our senses. We've touched on that before. So let's talk about what else there is that can help us.
I mean, from the medical point of view, and we talked about this earlier, the male orgasm has always been important for medicine, for the medical industry, for the pharmaceutical industry. But the female, because obviously a man has to have an orgasm to ejaculate to achieve a pregnancy. But a female orgasm is only for pleasure. There's no link medically, it's not necessary. So actually, pharmaceuticals were way behind. So when a woman asks me, because I see a lot of women in perimenopause where libido, which is the want or the anticipation for sex, decreases because of our decline in testosterone, our natural production of testosterone will decline.
Okay.
And in menopause, where there's nothing, the ovaries are not producing their own hormones. So we're lacking behind when it comes to pharmaceutical stuff that we can use to help us, right? But there are supplements. And one of them, for example, is ashwagandha. And so ashwagandha is a root.
Whoa. Okay.
I describe it as it's a root, okay? It's similar to the ginkgo biloba and the maca root, okay? And this is also, it's mainly used to reduce stress. So it reduces the stress hormone cortisol. So we take it in the evening where we should unwind. But one side effect, it boosts testosterone just a tiny bit. So it's not a lot. So it's not going to
What's
give
it
you...
called?
It's called ashwagandha. And now we have supplements that do contain ashwagandha and some other ingredients. So all in all, it's a beautiful concoction. So these are supplements.
Hang on a second.
It's not
because
even medicine.
listen, we've had this conversation before when we've talked about menopause. So we've talked about the drop in testosterone, and the testosterone is what drives the libido.
Correct.
And libido is what we need to get us into that spontaneous sexual arousal rather than the responsive. But even with responsive, you might just, you're in menopause, you've got no testosterone going on there. So you might just feel like it's going to take a whole ton of work to get you there. So it's called, why have we never had this conversation before? Seriously, why have we never had this? It's called what?
Ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha. And
Yes.
it's a natural...
It's a natural root. It's used in Indian medicine.
Okay.
Yeah. So on its own, you can buy it. Okay?
Right.
But we also have supplements that contain ashwagandha and some other ingredients.
Okay, do you have a supplement that contains this? Yes. Get it out. I need it.
you need it?
I know, because we've talked about this. You and I have had this conversation. Okay.
That's it.
All right.
It's Liberex.
Ashwagandha. Saffron.
Because saffron also, it's a nootropic, so it calms the brain down as well. So this is beautiful. It's not long been in Malta, and
Do you know about this?
I was luckily involved in one of the pilot studies when it was introduced in Malta. And my patients, I've had a few patients who had tested it out, and the response was, it was there. It was there, subtle but there. So sometimes that's all we need, because with the drop in libido, that's all you need.
Sorry, my face is like this. I'll tell you why.
And
Because
this is
we've
not
had
just
this
for women, by the way. It's even for men.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay. I tell you why, because we've had this conversation over and over and over again. And we've talked about on this show before about how we can improve that drop of libido. Does this apply to, I mean, we also had that conversation where, I don't know if you recall, when we were talking about the drop in libido, which is a result of some pills, of contraception pills.
Yes,
So is
yes,
this
yes.
just for menopausal women, or is this for...
No, it's for everyone. Everyone, even men.
So you're saying anybody that may even struggle with low desire, for example?
Low desire. Yes. Obviously, with vaginismus, there's a different pathology with vaginismus.
Yes.
Okay, you've just used two words there.
So
Vaginismus
is
and
when,
pathology.
Yes. So pathology is when there's something wrong. Okay. Pathology is, in medicine, is the mechanism of the disease. Okay. With the vaginismus is when anatomically, the pelvic floor, and we've talked about the pelvic floor in previous shows, that it's like a hammock of muscle that is at the base of the pelvis. And through this hammock of muscles, okay, there's the vagina that passes through, and the rectum and the urethra, which is the pipe that goes from the bladder to the outside. So if that muscles is really, really tight, the vagina, which by the way is only skin, it's not an organ, it's not a solid organ. So the shape of the vagina is depending on how tight, how wide or close these muscles are. So if there's a pathology, if there's a problem with how tight these muscles are, whether the woman is anxious and she's tightening her pelvic floor without even knowing, it's like bodybuilding of these muscles, then I'm not going to give her this, because it's going to be going against that.
Okay.
It's like a
giving her
separate
the
issue.
will to want sex, and then it's painful. So we need to work on the painful sex first.
Okay.
So it's not for everyone, but when someone is struggling with low libido,
Okay.
so in the initiation, the wanting, the horniness is going on.
I love you saying horniness.
It's being horny.
I love that. I really love Chiara saying
Exactly.
horniness. But this is relatively new to Malta. And I'm fairly sure that abroad there are other products as well. But this is over the counter, or is it prescription?
Over the counter. Yes.
Over the prescription. Sorry.
No prescription.
Sorry.
Over the counter.
Over the counter product that is going to subtly improve your libido.
Yep. Yes.
How are we only talking about this today? Seriously.
Because it's new to Malta.
New, yeah.
There are other things. But this is regulated. We talk about aphrodisiacs and certain chemicals and things you can smell. But this is regulated. We know what is in it. We know the milligrams. We know this is safe. So yeah, give it a go.
Are you actually asking me to give it a go?
I don't know.
Excellent. This show just got a whole ton better. Brilliant. Okay, I'm really relieved. I'll tell you why.
And that's medicinal.
Medicinal.
Because surgically, I can do stuff as well.
Okay, sorry. I'm still sitting here just going, this is really cool, because we've talked about it before. And then Chiara gives that little smile and she says, yes, and surgically we can do stuff as well. But didn't we rule out any surgery?
Well, okay. So this is, I'm going to clarify. This is not surgery as such.
Okay.
It's an intervention. So there's something called an O shot.
Does O stand for
Orgasm.
okay?
This is what we're talking about. Orgasm, the whole show. And this O shot, so this is a procedure I do.
This is local.
Yes, this is,
Okay.
so I do provide this procedure. So the O shot is basically it's very safe, very safe.
Okay.
And you talked about the G spot before as well. So with the O shot, it's a PRP intervention.
What does that mean?
So PRP is platelet-rich plasma. It's a technique where we take some of the patients, I'm going to call them patient, not client, because for me they're patients, from the patient's blood. And in our blood, we've got serum and we've got cells. And one of these cells are platelets.
Okay.
Okay. So these platelets are special little things, usually involved in clotting. But with the PRP, what we do is we process the blood in a way where the platelets are burst open and all the goodness that's inside them is then extracted and injected back in the body. And PRP is used for hair stimulation, for hair growth, for alopecia.
Okay.
On the face, for facials, injected in joints. So it is
Just
it is
basic
used.
goodness. It's like all the
Absolutely.
goodness of the
Yes.
body in tiny cells.
Exactly. So it's used in medicine. Okay.
Okay.
So we take some of your blood. So it's your own. So no allergy, no risk of reacting. But with the O shot, I injected back where the G spot is, around the clitoris and the clitoral hood and the labia, to kind of augment these areas.
What does augment mean?
Increase in size. And it's not permanent, okay? So that's why it's not surgery. But it's good 6-8 months of nice effect. So I provide this mainly to women who are struggling with that sexual gratification, difficulty with achieving the orgasm. Most of my clients are in menopause, but I do have younger clients as well. But yes, it's something that is non-invasive, so it can be done.
And sorry, I'm still reeling from this. And then you throw this in. So you can actually extract blood, take the goodness out of it, and put it back into, which is a goodness that could be applied to any part of the body to create a healthy environment in any part of the body. And you put that back into our vagina and to the clitoris.
Yeah, and the labia.
And it does what?
It helps with sexual gratification. So
Did
better orgasms. Oh, shot.
Did you
Yes.
know about this? Is this recent? You didn't know? Has this been around a while, or is this relatively new?
In Malta, not that long. I started doing them a couple of months ago, actually. Worldwide, only a couple of years. And there's different types. This is the safer one.
Okay, so sorry. You know why I'm really, really pleased to hear about this? Because we started off the show talking about why there is the orgasm gap. And we said that one of the contributing factors to the orgasm gap is really the lack of research, the lack of attention that's been given to women and sexual satisfaction. And we know that a lot of independent and medical body research has been put into and funding into penile erectile dysfunction. We know that. And we know that in 2015 to 2017, 4 times more investment was put into penile erectile dysfunction than menopause and menstruation together. Okay, that's the statistic that dates back to literally the last decade. And I'm really relieved and I'm thrilled to hear when we find out about this. Is it dangerous?
No. Not at all.
I'm asking a serious question. Did you guys know about this?
I know that recently in Malta we have been doing it, but these are all recent developments.
Exactly.
That there is more research around female sexual pleasure, that there is more research around developing medication to increase libido. These are very recent. So
This is really good news.
And it's really good news that Dr. Chiara is in Malta to teach us about these things.
I'm really flabbergasted.
And you're awake doing this as well. It's not like needing gender anesthetic, right?
It's not painful?
A bit of a local anesthetic cream. Not
Okay.
painful at all. Not painful. And I'm gentle.
Well, I like that. So this is going to assist in sexual stimulation and sexual arousal and orgasm.
Exactly.
It's like a medical sex aid.
Yes.
But seriously, this is incredible.
Yes. Yes. And
How come you've been keeping this to yourself? No. This really is incredible. I really am astounded. And I tell you why, because I'm really, really thrilled that now some attention has been given. And obviously you're talking about this. It is being given. Seriously, we're good way into the show before you mention this one. But the attention is being given to female sexual pleasure.
Yes.
You have a humdinger as well.
I have something to say.
Go.
It's because finally conversation is happening,
Yes.
and women are speaking up, and women are saying, I count too. I matter too in this area.
Yes.
So that is why
25 years, 1995. Didn't you say 1995?
Yes. And finally learning what we need to support our sexual well-being,
Okay. All right.
like these sex aids and
I'm sorry, what?
like sex aids, things that help us engage in
Okay.
pleasurable sex. So there's we've mentioned lingerie, toys. There's a lot of-
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the fact that, I was leading you into that because I do want to talk about sex toys. And that's this. Because when I think of sex aids, I literally do, and I do have a couple of these, I do think of vibrators. We think of these sorts of things, lube and so on. And I think for a lot of women, this is something that we just need some clarification on
Yes.
and some clarity. Because I think for a lot of men like the idea of vibrators and they're sort of a bit titillating. But for women, they really can be an essential part of arousal. Except that they don't look the same as they used to. And I just so happen, as if by magic, like I did before, now this is me now, I happen to have these. These ladies haven't seen these. But I happen to have some sex toys.
It's another Mary Poppins situation.
I am. It's a Mary Poppins. We came here with the... But I think for a lot of us, we just don't know what they are and we don't know what to do. So I'm going to kind of put you guys on the spot here and first talk about sex toys, sex aids, and then we're going to talk about in a second lube and why we'd have that as well, because I think everyone needs to know about lube.
Yes. I
There
agree.
you go. I'm right, aren't I? Everyone needs to know about lube. But what are we talking about when we're talking about sex toys?
it is an instrument for stimulation. So if you...
I mean, first of all, are these looking familiar to you? Because a lot of these I am not...
It's important to say that there's a lot of different
There are different variations, different sizes.
Exactly.
It's also important to say that, for example, this is for mainly clitoris stimulation. Because some women can be, this has to go in, and there is this kind of fear that I might get hurt, but you start with clitoris stimulation, and then this is mainly used for clitoris stimulation. This can be used both for clitoris stimulation and for penetration. This is usually used with a remote control.
Okay.
And it can...
I think it's a vibrator, right?
this is a vibrator as well. That's a bullet vibrator.
Which is extremely popular.
Yes,
Isn't it? We all know what a bullet
it's
is.
Small. It's you can keep it in your handbag. It's very easily available to buy. It's also for clitoris stimulation. It can be inserted, but be careful that you have a good grip on it when you insert it, so it does not disappear inside the vagina.
But it cannot go beyond.
No, no,
okay,
no,
'cause
no, no.
we
This
need
is
to
really,
clarify
really
this.
important that you have a good grip on it, and only the
It's more about stimulating the entry.
it's
to the
mainly
vagina.
to
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Because
Yes,
you're getting
because-
very. Okay.
because we
explain
can-
to me. Explain to me. Because
Yes.
Because I get women, even with other things like the vaginal contraceptive ring, for example, women fear that the vagina, there's something can get lost up there. Okay,
Yes.
so the
Yes,
vagina
yes,
is
yes.
10 centimeters. It's a dead end canal. It's a dead end tube, so it cannot go somewhere.
Yes,
where
but
it-
obviously you need to have a good grip on
of
it.
course, a good grip as in you hold it tightly.
Yes, yes, yes,
Then
yes.
that's different, because something we didn't mention at all actually is anal sex. There's
Yes.
also anal pleasure, even for women, for men. Anybody can enjoy anal sex. And when it comes to the opposite of what Kara just said, when it comes to the anal cavity, it's important that they have a flared base like we have here. Because if it's something like this, that could get lost because there isn't anything stopping it from going
Yes.
all the way up. Yeah.
Okay. Or okay. I want to ask a real basic question. Why sex toys? What is the point of a sex toy? Why do we need a sex toy that's going to help us to be able to achieve orgasm? That's the
helps-
goal today, to find out how we
It
can
helps in solo sex and masturbation
achieve. Okay.
because a sex toy will have different vibrations, different speeds, so it will help in masturbation.
And this comes back to what we were saying before about everybody being stimulated with different pressure, different
Exactly.
sensations,
And
you
vibration.
finding, okay,
Yeah.
and vibration, and finding your own motivation, your own sensual buttons, if you like.
And a lot of these toys usually have different, what's the word? Not levels, but
Speeds.
Speeds. Yes, you can increase or decrease
Yes.
the speed.
Okay.
Or, yeah. So,
The intensity. So you can
That's the
work
word.
exactly. So
Exactly.
you can work out the intensity.
And it can be used in intimacy with another partner, obviously
Okay.
with consent, because sometimes, if we're talking about heterosexual relationships, a man can be a bit put off by the use of a vibrator. So it has to be used with consent in relationships.
But why? Why would we have a sex toy? What is the purpose?
To increase, to introduce change, to play, because sex is finally play.
I would say it's another way to maximize pleasure.
And yes.
Okay. Okay. And leading to, obviously, as we go back to right to the very beginning, leading to that engorgement of the clitoris or whatever part of the body,
Yes.
and the stimulation can come from sex toys.
Yes.
Wow. But you've just mentioned that you really do have to have a conversation. If this is going to be part of your partner relationship, you have to have a conversation. I have to say, honestly, these don't look anything like sex toys maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago, or maybe even 10 years ago, because they're actually really nice looking. I mean, they're
Yes.
quite,
The,
they're
the
quite
touch
pleasant.
is nice, yes.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got these sex toys. We've spoken to our partner, whoever it is, or we're purchasing something for ourselves. And this is, how do you decide what it is that you want?
I think it's a matter of preference. I think it's a matter of trying different things and seeing what works for you, whether you want clitoris stimulation, whether you want anal stimulation, whether you want a mix of things. So like with trying different sex positions, like with trying different hotels where you enjoy your sex with a partner or by yourself, it's about trying different things and seeing what makes you tick.
Okay. And is there any embarrassment or shame about sex toys? Do you come across that?
I think it's less and less
Okay.
because it's something becoming more common in sexual play.
Okay. I'm intrigued. They're actually really quite nice looking objects, aren't they?
They're actually, I was thinking, very ergonomic as well, if,
Yes.
if you think about it.
but they do feel, honestly, they do feel very feminine. They feel, despite the color because it's blue, but they do feel very smooth and feminine and so on. Is there a particular preference? I'm asking you ladies because you're sex therapists. Is there something on the table that you're like, this is a really good one to have in your handbag?
I mean,
Again, it's preference.
it's preference, but usually a starter sex toy tends to be the bullet because it's maybe less scary as a first try. But I think nowadays it's really about what you want to experiment with and what you're willing to give a try. So I wouldn't say there's anything specific, but I think usually the bullet is the one that people try maybe first.
I want to say it's your entry-level vibrator, but that's probably not the right.
Not really.
Sorry. We can or not take that out, either way. Okay, let's talk about, last thing, let's talk about lube.
Yes.
Because this young lady over here has said lube is your friend that everybody should have every time.
Yes, I think lube is one of the most underrated sex aids, but one of the most practical and useful.
Okay, I happen to have some.
Fantastic. I love this.
This conjuring of.
Can you see this? I've just been, because it's part of the taking away the shame is putting these things on the table and holding them and talking about them and discussing them.
Yes.
So that
And make some space.
now you also mentioned as well about lubrication.
Is there a taboo about lube? Because I get women in menopause who are obviously you're drier in menopause because of there's not the same amount of discharge as previously
Because of a drop in the hormones.
because of a drop in the hormones,
gotcha.
Because of a drop in estrogen.
Okay.
Which also, by the way, happens as well in the postnatal period. Okay, someone who's breastfeeding will have a drop in estrogen, and the vagina is not unlike someone who's in menopause. Okay,
Frequently
very
spoken
similar.
about? Is this something that people talk
Probably
about?
not. Probably not.
Oh, wow,
Usually
okay.
you say, "Oh, yeah, painful sex. Yes, it's normal." Yeah, why is it normal? So because of a drop in estrogen, we have a drier vagina, both in postnatal period and in the menopause. And one question I ask my menopausal women: any problems with intercourse, any pain, bleeding, irritation? Yes, dry. And then I ask, do you use lube? And then they tell me no. So why do we not use lube?
Yes.
If you are dry, you need to use lube. I think that goes without saying.
Exactly.
Is there a taboo with using lube?
I think it's just a lack of awareness about it. So first of all, yes, it's a very beneficial aid for people that are struggling with vaginal dryness. But it can be helpful for anyone because essentially what lube is creating more lubrication in the vaginal cavity and in the vulval area. So even with sex toys, even with penetration, it's just making the area more wet and therefore easier to have sex and to enjoy it and prevent pain, etc. And there's different kinds, and I think that's why I really want to talk about it today, because the main ones we talk about are, and we have them here, so well done, are water-based lubes, silicone-based lubes, and oil-based lubes. So there's different kinds.
Oh, wow.
It's a matter of preference. Water-based is water, so it's absorbed a bit more quickly, so you might need to use it more frequently, but it's also the least messy, I would say, because it is water-based. Silicone and oil-based are a bit thicker, so they last a bit longer. They tend to be more preferred for anal sex, for example, silicone. But then it's a matter also of why you're using it. So if you're using condoms, you should not use oil-based lube. This is very, very important because it can degrade the latex. So that's a matter of choosing the correct lube. If you're using these wonderful toys, which usually are made of silicone, that is why they have that nice feeling, you should not use silicone-based lube because silicone will degrade the quality of the product. It will become ruined very quickly.
Okay.
So that's why you need to choose then why you're using the lube. So depending on that, you will choose. And something super important, which I think Chiara will love, is that another type of lube is flavored lube. We have one here, actually. Flavored lube is flavored with the intention to taste nice. So that means it has sugar, and sugar should never enter the vaginal cavity. So flavored lube is for external play only. And that is something that, at least when I talk about it with different clients or friends, colleagues, it's not often talked about. Because if you do that, you might need to visit Dr. Chiara more
some-
frequently
for some
than
treatment, for some medication.
Yeah, because it can cause
Yes,
irritation, yeast infections because of the sugar in.
Yes.
So these
it unbalances
the unflavored natural lubes are the ones for internal play that you use with toys, with a penis, with fingers, whatever, and flavored lubes are for external only.
And depending if you're going to use them with toys or with a condom, so
Exactly.
According to
Wow.
whether it's water-based, oil-based, or silicone-based.
Exactly.
But in all situations, according to Nicola, have
is
them
your
on
best
hand.
friend.
Absolutely. I love this. What a great way to kind of wrap up what we've been talking about today. Lube is your best friend.
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Any other, from you, Chiara, we mentioned about sugar, any other areas of caution with regards to lube or sex toys?
Oh, I would say avoid fads like those glitter eggs not to be inserted in vaginas. And explore your bodies, explore with your partner, find out what you love, what you enjoy, what you do not like. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, I like that.
And be safe in doing them.
Okay, okay.
So safety is very important.
But not to be fearful.
Yes.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
All right. Okay. I think we've gone on a very extensive journey around the orgasm. And I am absolutely thrilled. And I'm sure that there are many more questions. I have to say, my eyes have been utterly opened from the anatomy point of view, the anatomical point of view, knowing now what a clitoris actually looks like and how it works from a relational but psychological point of view, and exactly what's happening as we head towards our experiences and orgasm, how we get there, and then everything that can help us, whether it be supplements or a shot, or whether it be toys and lubrication, whether it be the surroundings and the situation, and taking that into account what we're wearing and how that makes us feel, not just when we're getting into the bedroom or wherever we're going to be, but also on a daily basis. I'm really profoundly blown away by this conversation. So I'm going to ask you guys, each in turn, to pick out what you think is the most important thing that we've discussed today, and give a little tiny summary so that we each have something to take away from this show in a bit of a golden nugget nutshell. Do I have a volunteer to go first?
Sure. I'll bite.
Brilliant. There she goes.
I'd just like to say to anybody listening that it's time to throw shame out of the window and start to challenge these misconceptions, these core beliefs, wrong beliefs that we have, and to remember that you are allowed to have sexual pleasure, you are allowed to want to increase your sexual pleasure, and it is absolutely okay to want to learn more about these things and to try these things and to not feel any shame doing it.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Anna.
I would like to, my end message would be that your orgasm matters, that your sexual pleasure matters. And I think it's about time that women are more and more empowered with information, with knowledge, with anything that can help them become more sexual being and embracing that they matter too in a sexual in sexual intimacy.
Fantastic. I love that too. So lose the shame, pick up the empowerment. Chiara, you're the last word.
Well, I obviously I'll echo what my colleagues are saying, but I'm also learning, and I've learned a lot from today's show. And I might say I'm going to take something away with me, and it's the erotic blueprint. And that's fascinating. The languages, the sexual languages, that's beautiful. So I will not repeat what these two ladies are saying. Yes, you matter. We remain being sexual beings all our lives. We're important. We should enjoy having sex. But yes, and we all speak different sex languages.
I absolutely love that. And I'm going to wrap up and just say, whether it be anatomically or medically, whether it be physically, whether it be through sex languages that we've talked about. Every single woman is different, and every single woman has her own sexual story. And I think that is what is so profound. And I feel like when we talk about the influences that we have right now, whether it be through media, whether it be through our friends, our peers, whether it be through education, whether it be through pornography or film or whatever, I think it's really important to take on board that everybody's language is different, everybody's experience is different, and we need to find out what is right for us in order for us to be able to achieve the maximum orgasm. I'm going to say cheers. Cheers. Cheers to
to
everyone
that.
having the best
Cheers.
orgasms ever.
Cheers.
We got there in the end.
Oh, goodness. Thank you.
And that was the climax.